What happens aback one of Hollywood's best admired actors? Walks into a babble, a sure to amiable babble, and instead finds himself in the average of a exact ambush. What you're about to attest in is one of the best atomic confrontations in daytime television history. And it all started with a distinct catechism that Cypher saw coming. Before we get into this, accomplish abiding, you hit that subscribe button and beat a animate version beneath cogent. Me whose ancillary you're on in this accomplished bearings, because assurance me. Your activity to accept a able assessment by the end of this video. Kevin Bacon sat bottomward on the couch with that amenable smile he's accepted for. The affectionate of attendants that's fabricated him a domiciliary name for over 4 decades. The admirers acclaimed warmly, and for the aboriginal few minutes, aggregate seemed altogether normal. The hosts were laughing, Bacon was charming, and the activity in the flat acquainted light. They talked about his latest project, some agreeable, belief from set, the accepted fare you'd apprehend from a promotional interview. But then Joy Behar leaned advanced with a attending that appropriate she had article abroad on her apperception entirely. So Kevin, she began, her accent alive slightly, I had appetite to ask you about article you said in an account a few months ago. You mentioned that you anticipate actors should breach out of back room unless they absolutely apperceive what they're talking about. Did I get that right? Bacon's smile remained, but there was a beam of attention in his eyes. Not absolutely what I said. What I was aggravating too accurate was that I anticipate we all, not aloof actors, but everyone, should be anxious about how we use our platforms. I wasn't adage actors shouldn't allege up. I was adage we should be abreast aback we do. Joy nodded. Slowly, but her announcement appropriate, she wasn't absolutely annoyed with that answer. But don't you anticipate that's a little affluent advancing from Edition, who's been in Hollywood for as continued as you have? I mean, you've benefited from this industry. You've had the advantage of this platform, and now you're about cogent. Added bodies to be quiet. The temperature and the allowance afflicted instantly. Could see it in the way the added host glanced at anniversary other, the way the admirers went from balmy to uncertain. Bacon's aspect straightened, and aback he batten again. His articulation was abstinent, but firm. I'm not cogent to anyone to be quiet. Joy, that's not what I said afresh. And it's not what I'm adage now.
What I'm talking about is responsibility.
Aback you accept millions of bodies alert to you. I anticipate you accept an obligation to accomplish abiding, you accept the complexities of what you're discussing. That applies to me aloof, as abundant as anyone else. Joy wasn't abetment down, but Kevin, you do apprehend that sounds like you're aggravating to gatekeep activism, right? And you're basically adage that unless Edition meets your accepted of actuality, abreast enough, they shouldn't allege up about things that bulk to them. Don't you see how ambiguous that is? Bacon leaned advanced now. His accessible agreeableness replaced by article, added intense. No, Joy. What's ambiguous is putting words. In my aperture and a fresh arguing to join article, I didn't say. I never said bodies shouldn't allege up about things that bulk to them. I said we should be anxious and informed. There's a aberration, and I anticipate you apperceive that. The admirers reacted with a admixture of gasps and applause acutely. Divided. One of the added hosts approved to jump in, attempting to bland things over, but Joy captivated up her hand. I'm not putting words in your mouth, Kevin. I'm interpreting what you said, which is what anybody who heard that account did. And a lot of people, myself included, heard it as addition, whose adequate and acknowledged cogent added bodies to analysis. Themselves afore they speak. Maybe that's not what you meant, but it's how it came across. Bacon's jaw tightened. Fresh, maybe the botheration isn't what I said, but how bent some bodies are to adapt it in the affliction-accessible way. I've spent my complete career aggravating to use whatever belvedere I accept responsibly. I've accurate causes I accept in. I've accomplished myself. I've listened to bodies who apperceive added than I do. All I was suggesting was that others. Adeptness, appetite to do the same. That's controversial. A fresh eye assumption. I'm guilty. Joy leaned aback in her chair, bridged her arms. You apperceive what I think, Kevin. I anticipate what's absolutely activity on actuality is that you're afflictive with the actuality that adolescent actors who are added diverse actors. who represent communities that accept being marginalized, our application their choir and means that accomplish bodies in your bearing uncomfortable. And instead of analytical why that makes you uncomfortable, you're aggravating to badge how they accurate themselves. The blackout that followed was deafening. Bacon stared at Joy for a continued moment. Aback he assuredly spoke. His articulation was quiet, but razor-sharp. That is absolutely out of line. Joy, you don't apperceive me, able-bodied abundant, to accomplish assumptions about what makes me afflictive or why. Frankly, it's calumniating to advance that my affair about a breast address is somehow abiding an ache with diversity. I accept formed with, supported, and abstruse from bodies of every accomplishments throughout my career. What you aloof said isn't aloof wrong, it's offensive. Joy didn't flinch. I'm not aggravating to affront you, Kevin. I'm aggravating to get. You too see how your words adeptness be accustomed by bodies who don't accept the aforementioned advantage and belvedere that you do. A back addition in your position says what you said. It has an impact. It sends a message, and that bulletin adeptness not be the one you intended, but it's the one bodies are hearing. Bacon stood up then, not aggressively, but definitively. Movement bent anybody off guard. You apperceive what? Joy? Came actuality today. Cerebration we were activity to accept a conversation. In complete babble area, two bodies accept to anniversary added, and try to accept altered perspectives. But what's accident appropriate now isn't a conversation. You fabricated up your apperception about what I anticipate and what I meant afore. I alike sat bottomward on this couch. You're not absorbed in what I absolutely accept or why I accept it. You're absorbed in scoring credibility and authoritative me attending like article I'm not. One of the added hosts approved afresh to intervene. Kevin, amused lets aloof booty, a animation actuality, and ... But Joy cut her off. No, let him finish. Acutely his article he wants to say. Bacon looked anon at her. What I appetite to say is that this appropriate actuality is absolutely the problem. Can't accept complete discussions anymore because anybody is so active aggravating to win, aggravating to be right, aggravating to booty bottomward, anyone who says article that doesn't altogether adjust with their worldview. I came on this appearance an acceptable acceptance, and you ambushed me with a bad acceptance estimation of article I said months ago. In a balk, I approved to clarify. You angled bottomward and accused me of actuality afflictive with diversity. That's not discourse. Joy, that's a hit job. The admirers was absolutely bashful now, the astriction and the flat palpable. Joy's announcement hardened. A hit job, really, Kevin? Lermit you to explain your own words and pointing out how they adeptness be ambiguous is a hit job. Maybe the complete botheration actuality is that you're not acclimated to actuality challenged. You're acclimated to anybody comatose forth and alleviative you like the astute ancient elder of Hollywood. A Bach edition absolutely pushes back. You can't handle it. Bacon's easily clenched at his sides. I can handle actuality challenged aloof. Fine. Joy, what I can't handle is actuality, advisedly mischaracterized in a fresh anger to back. I try to avert myself. You're not absorbed in compassionate my perspective. You're absorbed in disturbing it bottomward so you can feel righteous. And you apperceive what the saddest allotment is? You apparently exceed unadded than we disagree on? But we'll never apperceive that, because you'd rather accept a caction than a conversation. Joyce stood up now, too, adversed him beyond the coffee table. You appetite to apperceive what I anticipate is sad, Kevin. I anticipate it's sad that addition with your intelligence and your acquaintance can't see accomplished. Their own ego continued abundant to accept why bodies are criticizing what you said. You allocution about albatross and actuality informed, but you're not demography albatross for your own words and how they affect people. You're deflecting in arena the victim. Bacon's articulation rose for the aboriginal time. I'm not arena the victim, Joy. I'm arresting myself at join approximate accusations. There's a difference. If you can't see that, if you're so assertive that you're appropriate, and I'm amiss that. You can't alike absorb the achievability that you adeptness be confounding me. Afresh this babble is pointless.
Well, maybe it is pointless.
Joy attacked back, her articulation analogous his intensity. Maybe you're right. Maybe we can't accept a complete babble because one of us came actuality with an agenda. Yeah, Bacon said, his articulation decrepit with frustration. One of us absolutely did. The bartering breach couldn't appear fast enough. As the producers signaled the cut, the two of them stood there bound in a beam that could accept broiled steel. The added hosts looked mortified. The admirers was active with abashed whispers. And about in America, amusing media was already exploding. But neither Kevin Bacon nor Joy Behar seemed to affliction about any of that. They were too active continuing their ground, neither accommodating to accord an inch. Aback they came aback. From commercial, you could cut the restriction with a knife. Kevin Bacon had alternate to his seat, but his anatomy accent was absolutely altered now. Gone was the relaxed, amiable cine star. In his abode sat Edition, who looked accessible for annular too. Joy Behar had that attending on her face. One approved admirers apperceive well. The one that says she's not done authoritative her point. The added hosts were acutely acquisitive to move on to absolutely annihilation else, but that wasn't activity to happen. Welcome back, Joy said, her articulation bound but controlled. Kevin, afore the break, you accused me of accepting an agenda. Anticipate our admirers deserve to apprehend you. Explain what you meant by that. Bacon didn't hesitate. What I meant, Joy, is that from the moment you brought up that interview, it was bright, you weren't allurement, an 18-carat question. You were ambience up an argument. You had already absurdly what my words meant, what my motivations were, and what affectionate of actuality I am. That's not journalism, and it's not conversation. It's ambuscade television. Joy's eyes flashed. Ambuscade television. Kevin, you're a bedfellow on a allocution show. You apperceive how this works? We ask questions, sometimes boxy questions, and guests acknowledgement them. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be accomplishing columnist tours. I can handle boxy questions, Bacon replied, his articulation abiding but firm. What I can't handle is artifice, bearded as questioning. You're not aggravating to accept my position. You're aggravating to discredit it, and your application approach that shut bottomward complete dialogue. One of the added hosts, acutely uncomfortable, approved to redirect. Maybe we can allocution about the complete affair actuality instead of the meta-babble about the conversation, but Joy wasn't accepting it. No, I anticipate this is absolutely the issue. Kevin is agitated because I challenged him, and instead of agreeable with the actuality of what I'm saying, he's advancing the way I'm at it. That's a archetypal angle technique. Bacon laughed, but there was no amusement in it. A angle technique. Joy, you accuse me of actuality afflictive with diversity. You appropriate that my complete angle is abiding in some affectionate of generational prejudice. And Abakai alleged that out as abhorrent and unfair. You angled down. How is that not? Angle on your part? 'Cause I'm not the one who fabricated the aboriginal account that sparked this conversation? Joy countered. You did. You went on almanac adage that actors charged to be accurate about speaking out on political issues. And aback I point out the implications of that statement. Abnormally advancing from addition in your position, you get arresting in affirmation. I'm advancing you personally. Bacon leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Do you appetite to apperceive what the complete implications of my account were? The complete ones, not the ones you've invented? I was talking about responsibility. I was talking about the actuality. That aback you accept a platform. Bodies accept to you whether you're able to allege unanswerable or not. And I anticipate I absolutely accept that we owe it to those bodies to do our appointment, to accept complication, to not. Aloof cascade off whatever we feel in the moment afterwards because the consequences. But who gets to adjudge what qualifies? As accomplishing your homework? Joy pressed. Who gets to adjudge a back addition is abreast enough? You added accustomed actors, the media, because it seems to me like what you're absolutely adage is that bodies should anticipate alert before they claim in the cachet quo. And that's a complete acceptable position for addition who allowances. From that cachet quo, Bacon's face flushed. That is not what I'm saying, and you apperceive it. Stop agee my words to fit your narrative. I'm talking about basal, bookish honesty. I'm talking about not overextensioned misinformation. I'm talking about acquainted aback you're out of your abyss in actuality, accommodating to accept two experts. instead of bold that acclaim equals expertise. And I'm talking about the actuality that marginalized communities accept been told to be quiet, to delay their about-face to get added accomplished before they allege up for generations. Joy attacked back, and aback. They assuredly accept admission. Two platforms aback. They assuredly accept choir that can be heard. Actuality comes addition like you suggesting that maybe they should pump the brakes. Can you absolutely not see how that sounds? Bacon stood up afresh, and this time there was complete acrimony in his movement. I never said annihilation about marginalized communities. I never mentioned any specific group I was speaking about anybody, including myself. You're the one who injected character backroom into this. You're the one who absolutely that my alarm for a breast address was somehow an advance on diversity. That's your interpretation, not my intention. Joy stood. Two accommodated him. Ambition doesn't bulk back the impulse is harmful. Kevin, that's an article you should understand. Your words accept after effects, behindhand, of what you meant by them. And your accusations accept consequences, too. Bacon accursed back. You aloof allege me on Civic Television Edition, who's afflictive with assortment and progress. You about. Accused me of actuality, a bigot, and you did it afterwards. Any affirmation based absolutely on your misreading of an account. I fabricated about bookish responsibility. Do you accept how austere that is? Do you accept what you're accomplishing to my acceptability appropriate now? Joy's articulation rose to bout his reputation. We're talking about the complete absolute abuse acquired by Cogent. Bodies to breach in their lane, and you're abashed about your reputation. This is absolutely what I'm talking about. This is absolutely the advantage I'm pointing out. It's not an advantage to avert yourself of join apocryphal accusations, Bacon said, his articulation abashed hardly now. To be advised fairly, it's not advantage to ask that bodies absolutely accept to what your adage instead of audition what they appetite to hear. You accept absolutely who I am and what I accept afterwards, giving me a fair hearing. The admirers was riveted. Some bodies nodding, others abashed their heads. The added hosts looked like they capitaled to be anywhere else. But Joy and Kevin were bound in, neither accommodating to accept an inch. Kevin, your actuality captivated answerable for your complete words.
As words you said publicly, words that are on record.
Joy said firmly. Nobody is authoritative annihilation up. And if you feel attacked, maybe that's because you're assuredly experiencing what bodies who don't attending like you, who don't accept your advantages, acquaintance, every distinct day aback, they try to allege up. Bacon a secular at her, his duke trembling. Do not assume to acquaint me what I accept, or haven't experienced. Do not abate me to a demographic and a fresh use that is a weapon to join me. I accept formed my complete life. I accept faced bounce. In criticism and abortion, like anybody else. The actuality that I've been acknowledged doesn't invalidate my angle or accomplish me fair bold for your sanctimony. The blackout that followed was heavy. Joyce stared at him, her announcement unreadable. And afresh in her articulation that was about sad Bacon, said article that would change the complete accent of what came next. You apperceive what the saddest allotment about all of this is, Bacon said quietly, his articulation acid through the astriction like a blade. We apparently exceed on 90% of things. We apparently appetite the aforementioned outcomes. We apparently affliction about the aforementioned people. But we're never activity to acquisition that out because you'd rather win an altercation than accept a complete conversation. And that's what's killing us as a society. Joy's announcement confused slightly. Article ablaze beyond her face that adeptness accept been acceptance, or adeptness accept been defensiveness. That's accessible to say, aback you're on the defensive. Kevin, it's accessible to alarm for amenity and compassionate aback. You're the one actuality criticized. Is that what you anticipate this is about? Bacon asked. 18-carat abashing in his voice. Civility, joy. I don't affliction about actuality. Nice. I affliction about actuality fair. Right. And I affliction about? Not actuality about labeled article, I'm not, because it fits your narrative. That's not allurement for civility. It's allurement for basal honesty. One of the added hosts assuredly begin an opening. I anticipate what's accident actuality is. That you're both advancing from complete altered perspectives on the aforementioned issue. Kevin, you're talking about a lone albatross inaccuracy. Joy, you're talking about systemic issues and adeptness dynamics. Those aren't necessarily adverse views, but Joy befuddled her head. No, they're not. According to back one angle, is actuality acclimated to black out the other. A back addition in Kevin's position says what he said. It has an air-conditioned after effect on bodies who are already abashed to a ledge up. That's the reality. Bacon sat a back down, but the acuteness hadn't larbored him, or conditioned effect. Joy, I'm advocating for bodies to brainwash themselves afore they allege on circuitous issues. How is that silencing? How is auspicious albatross and accurateness somehow oppressive? You're acting like allurement bodies to anticipate afore they allege as the aforementioned, as cogent them not to allege at all. Because for some people, it is the aforementioned thing. Joy insisted aback you're already angry aloof to be heard. Aback you're already actuality told you're not qualified, not accomplished enough, not above board enough. And a fresh addition with your Belvedere reinforces that message. It absolutely has a silencing effect, whether you advised or not. Bacon's articulation grew quieter, but added intense. Fresh maybe the botheration isn't what I'm saying. Maybe the botheration is that we've created an ambience. Any alarm for absorption or accurateness is automatically interpreted as an attack. Maybe we've become so abashed of actuality silenced that we've fabricated it absurd to accept standards at all. Joy leaned forward. Standards, Kevin. Who sets those standards? Because historically, the bodies who set the standards are the aforementioned bodies who've benefited from them. So, absolve me if I'm agnostic. A back addition who's been central the arrangement for 4 years aback wants to allocution about standards. I'm not talking about gatekeeping, Bacon said, his annoyance evident. I'm talking about truth. I'm talking about facts. I'm talking about not overextension cabal theories or misinformation aloof, because it feels appropriate or supports your cause. Those aren't approximate standards, Joy. Those are basal requirements for honest discourse. And who decides what's true? Joy challenged. Who decides what's actuality and what's misinformation? Because those judgments aren't neutral. Kevin there. Fabricated by bodies with their own biases and perspectives. Bacon stood up already added, and this time aback he spoke. His articulation agitated a weight that silenced the complete studio. You appetite to apperceive what I absolutely think, Joy? I anticipate you're so invested in this framework of annoyer, and oppressed of advantaged and marginalized, that you've absent the adeptness to see individuals. You attending at me and you see a demographic, see addition, who fits into your agreed class of bodies, who charge to be taken bottomward, or alleged out or educated, but you don't see me. You don't see my complete beliefs, my complete values, my complete life. The admirer's was absolutely still. Joy's face had gone from activated to stone. Aback she spoke. Her articulation was abstinent but cold. 8. Complete acceptable speech, Kevin. Complete moving. But it doesn't change the actuality that you said what you said, and bodies heard what they heard. And no bulk of appealing words about affiliation and compassionate changes the impulse of your aboriginal statement. Fresh, we're at an impasse, Bacon said simply. Because I can't ascendancy how bodies accept to adapt my words, abnormally aback. Those interpretations are filtered through agreed assumptions. I can alone ascendancy what I say and what I mean. And I've been as bright as I can possibly be. Joy stood again, adversed him beyond the coffee table. You're right. We are at an impasse. Because I'm not activity to pretend that words don't accept power, that ambience doesn't matter. That advantage doesn't abide aloof to accomplish you feel bigger about what you said. Bacon looked at her for a continued moment, and aback he spoke. His articulation was about gentle. You're not the bad guy, Joy. Neither am I. We're aloof too. Bodies who can't assume to apprehend anniversary added over the complete of our own certainty. And that's the complete tragedy here. I can brainstorm added perspectives, Joy said quietly. I aloof don't exceed with yours, and I'm not activity to pretend I do for the account of apocryphal equivalence. I'm not allurement you to exceed with me, Bacon replied. I'm allurement you to exceed the achievability that you adeptness accept. Blurred me, that your estimation adeptness not be the alone accurate one. Joy befuddled her arch slowly. I heard what I heard, Kevin, and so did anybody abroad who's been talking about this for months. Bacon best up his anorak from the back of the couch. The action was quiet, but definitive. Or maybe it's with a adeptness that's added, absorbed and affronted than understanding. Added, absorbed in demography, bodies bottomward, then architecture them up. That's a complete affecting avenue line, Joy observed, her accent sharp. It's not an avenue line, Bacon said. It's an ascertainment, and it's absolutely what I was talking about in that Aboriginal interview. We've created an ambience area -dies. Area complication is flattened. Area every account is best of far, for article. To be affronted by. It's a complete amphitheater of dysfunction. One of the added hosts fabricated one aftermost attack at salvage. Kevin, I anticipate there's been a lot of affection and actuality on both sides. So maybe with some distance, you and Joy could accept a altered affectionate of conversation. But Bacon befuddled his head. With all due respect, I don't anticipate. That's activity to appear because this wasn't a conversation. This was a prosecution. Joy absentively afore I sat bottomward what I was accusable of, and annihilation, I said, was activity to change that. Joy's face flushed. Kevin, you can carbon? History all you want, but the archetype of your account exists. Your words exist, and my estimation of them is aggregate by bags of people. Bags of bodies can be wrong, Bacon said simply. Abnormally aback they're all alive from the aforementioned adulterated premise. Abnormally aback abuse spreads faster than context. He started walking against the bend of the set, a fresh paused and angry back. You apperceive what? Joy? Achievement. You're right. By achievement that I am the problem. Because if you're right, afresh the band-aid is simple. But if I'm right, if what I'm absolutely talking about is article complete and important, fresh we're in agitation because we're accident, the adeptness to analyze amid accepted criticism, and bad acceptance attacks, the blackout that followed was absolute. Joy stood rigid, her announcement unreadable. The added hosts looked carapace abashed, and Kevin Bacon stood at the bend of the date, attractive beat, and disappointed. I came actuality today in acceptable faith, he said quietly. I absolutely did. And with that, he absolved off the set, not dramatically, not angrily, but with the quiet address of addition who had said aggregate he had to say. The camera backward on Joy Behar's face as she watched him go. Her announcement, a complicated mix of vindication, frustration, an article that adeptness except Ben regret. One of the added hosts approved to ample the silence. That was absolutely an acute conversation. Will be appropriate back afterwards this. But as the appearance cut to commercial, anybody in that flat knew they had a loof witnessed article unprecedented. Two able people, both assertive they were right, both clumsy to apprehend what the added was absolutely saying. Both bound in a action that neither could win. So, there you accept it. One of the best atomic confrontations in allocution appearance history. Accomplish abiding you, subscribe to the approach, and beat a animadversion beneath with your acknowledgement to this. Question. Whose altercation fabricated added faculty to you?